Welcome to the world of scale modeling with Mike Ashe, where techniques, tips, and creativity come alive with dozens of tutorials, projects, tape-up reviews, and picture references to help you build better scale models and enjoy our wonderful hobby. Welcome to Part 4 of Building and Detailing, the Revell Monogram 148 scale B-24D. In Part 4, we'll do some detail airbrushing. We're going to complete all the sub-assemblies, and then we're going to attach all the parts to the interior halves of the fuselage. So, let's get started.
I've got some of the base coat painting done. Both wings have been primed. And the other thing I did was I masked around these areas here and went ahead and airbrushed the inside the zinc chromate yellow. And both these wings came out really, really good. On the bombs, they got a coat of white and then the flat yellow. And they came out pretty good. So now what I need to do, put the stripe, or the masking tape stripe on here, and then I can go ahead and airbrush these olive drab. On the aft open gunner's port, what I did was I masked all around this area here so that I could paint the ammunition boxes olive drab. This needs a second coat. And I've got some Edward pre-painted 50 caliber machine gun belts, and I've got sections cut out, and I'm just going to glue them over the top here. And I'm not sure what this is. I think this is just a gunner's pack. It's not a parachute, too big for that. So I just went ahead and painted that olive drab too. So once I get the second coat on, I'll pull off all this tape and all of the hydraulic piping on the starboard side, which is where it's molded. I've got it masked off, and I'm going to shoot it with some aluminum color, flat aluminum, and that should come out pretty good. And I started detail painting some of the interior stuff. I know still need to do a little bit of touch up where it overflowed. On this one, I tried using an inking pen for a drafting inking pen, and I need to do a little bit of touch up here. I'm not sure I like the way it came out, but I think once I do some weathering inside here, it'll look okay. And once that's done, I can go ahead and pull off all the tape and then start gluing into place all of the Edward colored placards that go in here. And also, I can start putting the clear parts in place and get this bad puppy up to close it up. So I'll show you what that all looks like before I'm done. But so far so good. It's coming out pretty good. And I've got more parts to show you. So, one last thing. All the propellers primed, and then I got a coat of white, flat white, and then 2 coats of flat yellow. So yeah, we're moving along. So I just need to mask these tips, and then I can go ahead and airbrush these flat black. And they'll be done. Then we'll get a coat of gloss, the decals, the propeller decals, and yeah, so we're doing good. I've got the masking for the yellow bomb stripes done, and this is how I do it. I take a larger piece of tape, wrap it around the bomb to get it nice and straight, and then I take a smaller piece and then butt it up against this one and then remove the large one. So that's how you get the stripes nice and straight. You got to use a larger piece of tape first, otherwise it's really, really hard to get it straight, a thin strip straight. So again, you put the large strip on first, wrap it around it, and then put the smaller strip on, and then just take the larger strip off. That's how you do it. And this is how I do the masking on my propellers. And now these are ready for flat black. So I'll show you how they look when they're done. And the bombs are going to be olive drab. and of course the propellers will be flat black. So I'll get back with you when I'm done airbrushing. I've got all the tape removed, and the masking came out pretty good. So there's no bleeding, except in this area right there. Of course, you're not going to see that. So what we're ready to do now is I'll use some lighter olive drab and dry brush around the edges, and then do some silver dry brushing here, and then I'll remove the tape after I dust it with some pastel dust and seal everything. Then I'll remove the tape and put those 3 Edward colored placards there, and this will be ready. And then after everything is installed, I'll put the machine guns on last, and I've got the feeder belts to work on too. So yeah, it came out pretty good. And the little tiny amounts of Elmer's glue that I put in these areas here to fill the gaps on the stands came out really, really good. So we're ready to go to the next step. I've got some of the interior bulkheads painted, and it came out pretty good. I did some of this with a red inking pen, a silver inking pen, and a black inking pen versus a detail brush, and they came out pretty good. So this is the bomb bay part, and then this is the part that goes in the back of the cockpit. You're really not going to see this. And there's a radio box I'll put there. And so what I need to do now is do some silver dry brushing, and then dirty it up a little bit. Same thing with this one. Those got painted, those tiny pin heads got painted with the tip of a very sharp rounded toothpick, and it came out pretty good. There's actually nothing there. I tried to paint it and it just kept oozing out, so I just left it off. And yeah, so again, silver dry brushing and dirtying it up. And here's the open gunners area. So I need to do some dry brushing, dirty it up, put the colored placards there, and the 50 caliber machine gun belt Edward pre-painted parts go in there. So yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. Here's the cockpit, and there are the control levers for the 4 engines. And again, that's 0.012 inch stiff brass wire, and the tips are just tiny globs of white glue. So it came out pretty good. Once the console's in place and the seats are in place and it's dry brush and it's a little bit dirty, it'll look even better. So it's coming along. The propellers, let me get these out of the way. Propellers all came out really good. So now they need to be glossed so I can put the decals on them. And yeah, looking good. So we're moving on. So the only thing I got left is 2 more coats of olive drab on the bombs, and I'll show you those. And then I think that pretty much concludes it for all the base painting on the sub-assemblies, and then we can start putting this puppy together little by little. I've got both sides of the fuselage. I did a little bit of silver dry brushing and a tiny bit of sponging with silver paint, and then I dirtied up the interior just a little bit with some dark gray pastel. And then I took off all the tape that I had put on the gluing surfaces And I installed the Edward placards right there. And so next will be to install the bombs and the bomb racks. And then once that's done, I can go ahead and put the glass in place. But I want to do the glass last so that I don't damage it in any way. So I've got the bombs on the glued to the bomb racks, and they came out pretty good. And they go like this. And so what I did was, I scraped away the paint in the areas where there's going to be glue, like here. Just a tiny drop is all you need. And of course the 1,000-pound bomb, same thing. Now the instructions call for the 1,000-pound bomb to be here, and the 500-pound bombs to be here on this end right here, and then this structural post goes here. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these in place, and what I'm going to do is I'll put tiny drops of Testor's glue here, 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 and here, and do this one first and kind of work my way down. But I want to let each one dry and make sure it's positioned correctly, and then I can move on to the next one. And then once they're all done and dry, I'll use a drop of medium set super glue on each one of these. So yeah, it's coming along pretty good. I really like the placards. It really dresses up the cockpit as well as the bombardier station. Looks good. I've got the bomb racks installed, and they came out pretty good. It wasn't nearly as difficult to glue them into place as I thought. And I think what helped was the tiny drops of the Testor's red tube glue, this stuff. And it's real sticky. So came out pretty good. I've got just a tiny bit here and here where after I put the super glue in, it seeped out a little bit, but I can fix that. I've got to fill these areas, these tiny areas, with some Elmer's white glue, and then go ahead and touch it up and dirty it up so it matches. But it's come along pretty good. So the next step on this side will be the windows, and then this gunner's port cover over here on this side, and this port side of the fuselage will be ready. So we're getting there. On the starboard side, where all the bulkheads and the decking for the cockpit glue into, I dirtied it up. I did it the same way. First I did mild silvering with dry brushing, and I used the same technique that I demonstrated on the C-47 project, and then I sponged, and then I dirtied it up a little bit with some dark gray pastel, and then sealed it with clear flat, Testor's clear flat. And then I pulled off all the tape. So came out pretty good. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put the placards on this one and move on from there. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. Really, I think it's going to look really nice when it's done. On these bulkheads, again, same process. Did a little bit of dry brushing, sponging, and then dirtied it up a little bit. And I had a spare placard, so I put it there to kind of dress it up a little bit. And this one I used a light gray and just lightened it up a little bit. And the rest of this was the dark gray. On this one, it is ready for installation. I put the Edward pre-painted 50 caliber machine gun belts in place and the placards here. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. So it'll be ready to be installed. And the cockpit, I've got the console done right there. And the parts up here. And you're not going to see this once the fuselage is closed up. So now I got to do the seats, and this part will be ready too. So coming along pretty good. So we'll go ahead and put all this here for you, so you can take one last look at it. And I'll get going on the other side of the fuselage and get those placards in place. I've got the placards installed in both the cockpit and the forward area where the navigator and the bombardier are located. And they came out pretty good. And of course I installed the bombs and bomb racks. And of course from here, that's what you'll see. And again, I used drops of testers, tube glue in the positioning locations, and then when it dried, I doubled it up with some medium set super glue so it's nice and strong. So we're moving along. I really like the way it's going to look when it's done. So I'll start putting the cockpit deck in, or the bulkhead first, then the cockpit deck, then this bulkhead, and then this area back here. But I'll have to put in those clear parts there and there on this side. And the last thing I'll do is put the wind hatch over the open gunner's port. I'll put that in place last. So, and then we'll be pretty much done and ready to button it up. So we're moving along quite nicely. There's the port side. And it'll look good. Not bad for a kit that came out in the late 1970s. Monogram did a really nice job on stuff. So I'll put it right here. And be back with you in a little bit with more stuff done. I've got all the clear parts for the fuselage, the interior clear parts installed. And the way I do it is I use Testors tube glue, and I just put tiny drops with my trusty glue applicator right along where I had taken the tape off to prevent the paint from being on there. So that worked really, really well all across here. So now you can see glue on the inside, but no glue on the outside. And I use Testors glue exclusively for clear parts, for locations like this, because I don't want to take the chance of the super glue fogging up the clear glass. And then once they're dry, I go back over it again along the edge here, so that when it dries, it captures some of the edge of the glass, and to make it really, really strong so that it won't pop out on me. Because if it pops out after the fuselage is closed up, there's not a whole lot you can do. And I did it on the other side. Same procedure. So now, after the bulkheads are installed and the cockpit deck is installed, we'll be ready to close this up. So I'm very excited. It's coming out really, really nice. And I really like this interior color more so than the zinc chromate green. But my next kit will be the 148 scale PBY, and that was zinc chromate green on the interior. So, and I'm glad I did this, because that's going to look really good from here so that you don't see the wing struts on the inside. And the only thing I have left to do here is I'm going to go ahead and scrape the paint off in these areas here so that I can put some tester's glue on here. When I slide the wings in place, they'll be glued. Otherwise, that paint will prevent it from sitting correctly. So yeah, we're making good progress. I'm really, really pleased. The cockpit is done and it's ready to be glued into place on the side of the fuselage. The Edward pre-painted seatbelts look really, really nice on here. Get a close-up here. So, and I added an oxygen bottle and another placard here to kind of dress up the bare surface. And of course there's seatbelts here too. So it came out pretty good. Once it's installed, it's not as busy as it should be, but once it's glued to the inside of the fuselage and all the placards on the left and right sides are in place, it'll look pretty good. So yeah, and I used super glue here to hold these down. And the way you get rid of the super glue is just to use Tester's Dull Coat. You put a little dab on each one of the super glue surfaces and the shininess disappears. I use that extensively on building ship models when I super glue my railings to the deck, and then I run a bead of that Tester's Dull Coat along the outside and it makes the glue disappear. Works good on Elmer's glue too. So the levers I installed really helped dress it up too. So I think we are ready to go ahead and glue this to the inside of the fuselage. I've got all the components glued inside the fuselage halves, and the next thing I need to do is I'll go ahead and clean the glass on the inside with a Q-tip, damp with some Windex, and we're ready to close up the fuselage. And so far so good. Came out pretty good. Looks good. Installing the machine guns after I close up the fuselage is going to be a real trick, and then attaching the feeder belts is going to be kind of difficult, but I think I can do it. I've tested it and it can be done. So yeah, looking good. Now from the outside, of course, looks pretty sloppy, but once I get it glued up, taped up, it's going to look pretty impressive. Now, the starboard side has got all the detail in it. Came out pretty good. Now, one comment here. This kit was designed, there's pegs on one, there's a peg here, here, and you can see them better. I cut them off here and here. There's supposed to be a hatch here, and there was not one provided in the kit. Instead, they did a ladder, but you still need a hatch. So I made one. I just put the halves together, measured the opening, and cut one from 30 thousandths plastic sheet. And then in addition to that, I gave it a slight curve by rolling it on a dowel, wood dowel, and now I got a hatch. The only thing I got to do here, and I'll wait until after I do all the seam work, I've got super glue right along here that I need to put a coat of clear flat to get rid of that. But other than that, we're looking good, and we are ready to close up the fuselage and glue it together. Oh, one other thing. there's an antenna here, and there's a clip that allows you to put the antenna in place before you close up the fuselage. If you do that, it's going to break off. So I sealed it with some plastic strip, evergreen plastic strip, and then what I'll do is I'll attach it afterwards, and I'll show you how I do that. So I put the halves here together and show you what the sandwiched fuselage looks like in the bomb bay. There we go. So here's what you're going to see. So you're not going to see a lot of detail here now that it's closed up. What you're going to see is the placards, the guns, and the feeder belts. On the bomb bay, looking pretty good. And then on the cockpit, a lot of that's closed up. This is a big glass cockpit canopy, so you're going to see a lot here. Looking down through the top of the canopy. The front nose glass has got a lot of framing on it, so it's going to be really, really hard to see inside here. And I decided not to put any feeder belts on the machine guns. Now, the only thing I noticed was there's a slight misalignment up here of the Astrodome frame, and I'll have to fix that. But everything else is looking good. So we are ready to close it up, and my seamless turrets for the back, I bought 4 sets from Cold War Studios, and they completed the ones for the Monogram kits, and I ordered 4 sets. So as soon as that comes back, I'm going to do a feature video. I have their 1/32 scale ones for the Hobby Boss B-24J, and I ordered these for the Monogram kits, 4 sets, and then they're working on the ones for the Hobby Boss 1/48 scale B-24J, and I'll order those as soon as they're ready. So that's about the only thing that I'm waiting on. But in the meantime, I'll close up the fuselage, and I did test it. I can go ahead and complete the wings and slide them into place. I got the glue points over here scraped of paint, so when I go, I can slide the wings right in place after all this is done. And once this is glued together, then I just need to glue the tail on the horizontal stabilizer, and we're in good shape. So we are ready to glue up the fuselage.
This concludes Part 4, Building and Detailing the Revell Monogram 148 scale B-24D. And stay tuned for Part 5, where we glue the fuselage halves together, do all the seam work, and attach the horizontal stabilizer. So, until then, happy scale modeling. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. And when you get the chance, visit our website at www.mikeashley.com, where you're going to find dozens of free PDF downloads, including tutorials, picture references, model galleries, projects, and my 5 original scale modeling books. Thanks to Ben Sound and Videvo for the royalty-free music, and happy scale modeling!